I'm excited. It's going to be a great show.
Pop icon.
Solo artist.
Vocalist.
Business mogul.
Dancer.
Sex goddess.
Mother.
You and Guy seem exceedingly happy. How are you?
Guy?
Oh, yeah, we're very happy. Yeah, we're very happy.
Feminist icon.
Rock and roll figure.
Star.
Gazillionaire.
Powerful woman.
Little girl who wants attention. Fashion music maker.
Trailblazer.
Button pusher.
Gay icon.
Children's book author.
Change artist.
Fabulous.
Brand.
She is just famous.
Madonna was somebody that wanted to be a star and had the power to be a star and figured out the way to be a star.
Over her 20-year career, Madonna has been described in so many different ways and labelled as so many different things. But her quest for stardom started when she came to New York to dance.
She really did come out of a scene and out of a culture, out of the New York City club scene of the early 80s.
At that time, there was probably a generational change because the people who went to Studio 54 were, you know, wealthy fashion designers, models, corporate executives. You know, 54 became a place where it was all about getting in. It wasn't about the party anymore. So when 54 went down and the Mud Club came up, it got back to the music. It was all about coming back to the music. It was about dancing.
Madonna, when she left Michigan, she was coming here, you know, everybody knows, with, what, $60, $40, $35? Coming here knowing that Michigan was not going to be a place that she could evolve into anything more exciting. She had this hunger just to be a star.
An Italian Catholic girl from Middle America, Madonna Louise Ciccone was born and raised in the suburbs of Detroit. She spent her school days in Rochester. Classmate John Pfaff remembers what this was like.
Rochester was, what people would call it upper middle class. I think most of the parents of my classmates were either engineers or executives in the auto industry. We had a university nearby, and some of the kids' fathers and mothers were faculty. My high school had one black student. Everybody else was white.
One of the other, main exports from that area, from the eastern side of the state, is Motown. And in the early days of Madonna's career, she really was charting a territory that was kind of unknown for white artists. She was going into dance music and kind of this, post-disco moment where a lot of white female singers hadn't really gone before.
She didn't have a mother. I think her mother was not alive when she was in high school. Her brother, like I said, was in a lot of trouble all the time, so it wasn't easy. It wasn't the mother and father nuclear family situation, but they had money.
Her being from Michigan is significant. It's significant in the sense of, her kind of adopting that Motown sound, if you will, or at least that, that grain of African-American music and translating it into something completely different.
She was a pretty girl in our grade, and this is a kind of a cute story. Those of us that were very clever, her name is Madonna Ciccone. We would call her Madonna Silicone because, she had a phenomenal figure back then, and that was sort of our way of paying her a compliment, I guess.
Even at school, Madonna knew how to cause a stir.
What she did was she danced to this Motown song, covered by the Average White Band, and it was what we might have thought go-go dancing was, you know, just provocative, sexy kind of dancing, but it was creative and it was tasteful, you know, looking back on it. But at the time, it was just, holy cow, look at what we're looking at, right? Is, you know, look at what she's doing on school property was the thought that went through my head. But, you know, kind of looking back on it now, when you think about getting up in front of your high school class when you're 17 and dancing by yourself in broad daylight, I mean, that takes a lot of guts, takes a lot of confidence, and, you know, it takes a lot of, I'm doing this for me, and I'm not too worried about what other people think of it. So that was pretty impressive for a 17-year-old kid to do something like that.
After school, Madonna studied dance at the University of Michigan. Her dance teacher, Professor Gay DeLange, described her as a dedicated student, but someone who was anxious to get moving. So Madonna quit college and went to New York.
We opened a club called Danceteria in 1981, which was a crazy time where music was kind of changing between punk and the beginnings of new wave, and actually the beginnings of house music coming out of Chicago and Detroit. In New York City, there was a lot of different clubs. You had your black clubs, your white clubs, your rock clubs. And Danceteria was the first club where I had the freedom to kind of mix all kinds of music together. Danceteria had moved to 21st Street in 1982. That's where I met Madonna. She was a dancer that had this power. When she danced, people would surround her. That's where, I said before, where Sade was the bartender and Beastie Boys were working there, and LL Cool J was the busboy, and it was just one of those magical moments where we all gelled together. I was DJing, and Madonna was at the club every night, and one of the personalities. And Madonna had this aggressiveness, this personality where she'd get on the dance floor and dance, and fashion-wise, she had her own style. And she was broke in those days, but she managed to put herself together without spending any money, like those black bands that she had up her arms, you know. Now, as a DJ in the booth, I'd look out on the dance floor, and I'd see Madonna dancing, and I'd see a crowd of people surround her to watch her dance. And I knew she had this power of persuasion, this power of aggressiveness. And she came up to the booth, and she gave me a demo, a cassette to play. And that one first night, I put on the first song, Everybody.
So within months, the dancer from Michigan was plotting her singing career.
She was homeless. She was living in her rehearsal studio. She was in a band called the Breakfast Club. And I think her boyfriend at the time was Steve Bray. They had made these demos, and, you know, nothing really happened. She had a manager that couldn't make anything happen.
I think she actually played the drums in her first band, and she was involved with a couple of different boyfriends doing rock-based music.
It was a rock band that had no direction. When she made her solo record, Everybody, it wasn't a band anymore. She became an artist, a solo artist, which is obviously what she's always wanted.
She started out in New York in clubs, you know, and so she would bring her single around to like places like the Paradise Garage downtown and in the Village and get the DJ to play it.
I was with Madonna from late 81 until the end of 82, which was after producing the first song until the end of producing the first album.
Mark frequently used blank tape studios in Manhattan, which was owned by Bob Blank.
And Mark brought in Madonna while he was working on another project. What they used to do was they would record in the evening, and then around 2 in the morning they would go out and work the record in the clubs. I walked down the hall and there she was, and I was introduced to her as, "Hi, this is Madonna, I'm going to start producing her." I got a very good opportunity to see her work when they started working the record and making the record, Everybody.
One of the most fascinating things about Madonna is what she's managed to do musically without having a particularly great singing voice.
She didn't really know how to sing very well. And if you listen to the record, her voice is doubled, which is a very, very basic trick when you start working with a new artist.
Is she a great vocalist? No. Is she horrible? No. I mean, it pretty much is what it is. It's not, it wasn't like this, it wasn't like pulling teeth, you know. It was just, she would go in, she would, you know, sing it a few times, 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 times, fix something here, we would compile a vocal. It was actually pretty easy, you know.
She wrote the lyric, she wrote the melody, she wrote the song, and the song was in her key. But when she sang the melody, she would go flat. So when she would go flat, you'd rewind the tape and she would be asked to do it again. There's a point when, you know, you have to settle for the best, or you say, come back another night. So it's sort of difficult working with her. But she was a young artist, and a lot of times a young artist, the quality of performance beats production of a tone.
You know, I think that at a certain level, people just respect that she's done all of this without ever being the most talented singer, without ever being the most talented songwriter. I mean, she's good, but she's, you know, there's certainly always been other people around who you could say are more significant artistically.
I think she knew from the very beginning that she had a limited range. And I think that limited range of notes and ability, although over the years she's expanded that and tried to work things, yeah, you can't say that she has a great voice. What she has is a dominant personality and the understanding how to utilize her assets.
I remember that. I remember people like, who is this and what does she do? And she doesn't play an instrument. She doesn't really, she's not really a Mariah Carey, but back then they didn't say Mariah. Whitney Houston, they were comparing her to different people. She's not really that. You know, she doesn't write her material. What is she doing? What is she giving us? She's a visual. So, you know, people were scrutinizing from the beginning.
She wasn't a trained artist. In other words, you couldn't say, that's a C sharp and you should be singing C. She wasn't a trained musician, so that you couldn't talk to her about the syncopation or whatever. But you could talk to her as an artist and say, that needs more energy, or that sounds too harsh. And so in that case, she was very astute.
You don't have to have a really good voice to sing pop music. I mean, if you look at Britney Spears today, who is trying to do Madonna again, she doesn't have an amazing voice at all, you know. Her voice is really quite lackluster. But what they do have is a hook. You know, they have a hook both in their image and their sex appeal, and also just really catchy music that, that is easy for other people to sing along with too.
You can see when she's making decisions like that in the studio. You know, she's got a good gut instinct about what sounds good and what doesn't sound good, and how she sounds in relation to everything. And you know, so I don't think she's delusional about who she is or what she's capable of. So
her voice has improved a lot, actually. You know, there were times actually on the last tour where she was performing with an acoustic guitar, and it was, you know, not ridiculous, or it might have seemed ridiculous years before, but she actually was pulling it off.
end of 81, early 82, there were no female artists on the record charts. So timing-wise, it was perfect.
I mean, I came behind Debbie Harry and Chrissie Hynde and, you know, Joni Mitchell, a lot of incredible female performers. So, and they inspired me, and hopefully I've inspired the people behind me.
People responded right away. She had really good singles right away. I mean, that's the thing that people forget. A lot of her singles are just really well-made pop records and great dance records, and they were right from the start.
The appeal quickly went way beyond the New York club scene. Her first album, called Madonna, was released in 1983 and sold 9 million copies.
Because I'm not a musician, I'm a DJ. I don't deal with A minor, C minor, you know, I don't deal with music, I deal with feeling. But Madonna needed a producer that had the experience to bring out the best of her vocals. So after me, she went to Reggie Lucas, and then after that Jelly Bean, and then after that Nile, and then after that Patrick Leonard, who was the hottest producer in LA. I mean, you know, you could see her career.
Initially, Madonna was signed to Mark, but after the success of her first album, Sire Records, part of Warner's, wanted to sign Madonna direct. Madonna quickly left Mark Kamen's behind, in all ways.
Well, we lived together for a year in New York at the time we were making the first record.
Water under the bridge now, it is clear to Mark that she had to do what she had to do.
Madonna is very clever. Very clever. The second album, which was Like a Virgin, which Nile Rodgers produced, was her biggest selling record. I think she sold maybe, 16 million records with Like a Virgin, which kind of like established her as the ultimate female artist in the recording world.
Like a Prayer was the most kind of berserk brilliant. You know, I can't think of anybody, as far as sheer kind of like brilliant offensiveness. The idea of, there's that great scene where she's writhing around in a slip in front of a field of burning crosses. So essentially, she's using one of the most potent symbols of evil in American history as really great backlighting. You know, only Madonna will do this.
Maybe the reason Madonna became so famous so fast was because of her genius for rebelling. Through the 80s, Madonna was a rebel who was still singing fun pop music, releasing records like a Virgin, True Blue, and Who's That Girl? The defiance was more pronounced in the 1989 record, Like a Prayer.
When she was starting out, she was somewhat of a conventional sex symbol, you know, kind of presenting herself for an audience, but with this defiant edge to it. And as time went on, by about 1990 in the Blonde Ambition tour, it turned around and she became not at all a conventional sex symbol, and she became almost totally about defiance, and really became almost kind of like a rock and roll figure of rebellion, you know, where her sexuality was something that was completely in your face, and not at all about her being the object, but about her acting out kind of in front of you and expressing herself regardless of who looked.
Being a woman who was clearly sexually, or who was projecting an image of being sexually aggressive, which is not a role that women have traditionally occupied until relatively recently.
Well, part of it is that it's what she's known for. I mean, her first scandal, when there were the nude pictures that surfaced, this is going back to, I believe, 84, 85, that Penthouse was going to publish. She was very smart about having a T-shirt that came out and said, "I'm not ashamed."
You know, she styled herself as a sexual predator almost, and that was not something that we'd seen before.
You know, I think you get into trouble when you begin to try to pretend you're something you're not or defend yourself, and she wasn't defensive at all. You know, she basically said, "I pose nudes, so what?" You know. Now, it helped that it didn't contradict her image. It's not like she had said, "I'm a nun," and then she's there with naked pictures, she had always been writhing around anyway, so there really wasn't any great contradiction to it.
She managed to, you know, do the sex photo book and create her little scandal with that. But then, unlike a lot of people who might have been defined by that for the rest of their career, you know, it's kind of like once you take off your clothes, what have you got left to show? Well, then she put her clothes back on.
With Madonna, you know it's her, and I think a very telling example now is watching Britney Spears do this color-by-numbers version of the Madonna success book. You see her acting out in this way, but it's not driven by any personality. She's just hitting her marks, you know. I don't think anyone can deny that, even if you hated Madonna's music and didn't think anything of her, I think anyone who knows anything about her or watches closely can see that what was informing her sexuality during so many years was a genuine anger, a real anger about the church and about her father and about authority figures that was coming from a real place. And it wasn't made up just to get attention.
Sometimes you have to do that in order for people to really stop and listen. And then once you have their attention, then you can, you know, you can really go somewhere with it.
I think the thing that is really rare about the way Madonna has used her sexuality in public, it was revealed in the sex book. I can't think of another example of a celebrity, a female celebrity, revealing herself absolutely naked in public and having the point of view be her own. She was not an object in that. It was as if she was looking at you, not you looking at her.
I think also the force of her personality and just the way in which she's been able to really control her image and put herself on display as being this person who's not afraid to sort of challenge the media and challenge popular conventions or challenge cultural conventions, I think has also just made people really attracted to her.
1991 to 92, the years of the Erotica album, the Truth or Dare documentary, and most notoriously the sex book, will always be remembered as Madonna's most defiant years.
Well, when the sex book came out, absolutely everybody hated it. You know, it got a terrible reaction. It got a terrible reaction from conservatives, obviously.
That book cost $50, and she sold 1 million books. That's $50 million.
But it also got a terrible reaction from art critics. People did not take the book seriously. They saw it as just a hype. And people wouldn't even admit that it was shocking, which it sort of was.
Part of Madonna's raison d'etre is to push buttons, and even 20 years on, an image of one of her stunts was beamed around the world.
Madonna kissed Britney Spears on the Video Music Awards. The act of her doing that, you know, you could just chalk it up to somebody who wants to be in the spotlight and have people talk about her. But also the act of doing that was really
She's like a fashion music maker. She doesn't actually create the stuff, but she knows how to shop.
There's a very famous quote, I believe, from David Bowie. He once said, "It's not who does it first, it's who does it second."
I do not look to Madonna for the new thing. I look to her to synthesize what is current and happening.
It's kind of who perfects it. You know, a lot of people originate things, but then who is able to translate it, who is able to buff it up a little and make it more accessible. You know, that's something to be valued as well.
With every album, from Like a Virgin to Music, True Blue to Erotica, Bedtime Stories to Ray of Light, Madonna has always catapulted the hot new thing into the mainstream.
You know, each one is the new bubbling kind of sound that's coming up underground, and she's got her ear to the ground. She goes, you know, there it is, the new fashion for the year.
She's more been good or skilled at kind of keeping her ear to the ground at what is going on elsewhere in culture that's kind of maybe not bubbled up yet, and bringing that together and melding it and, you know, then branding it her own.
People are being brought to her and said, this is a great person and whatever, and she gives them their audience, and if she decides she wants to work with them, they work.
Her greatest instinct has been to find the best people to work with and to realise her visions, whether for her music or her image.
I think they inspire her and then they collaborate and work together on what would be best. And of course, I think she gets to pick and choose. They'll sketch out what they have in mind, and she'll pick from the sketches and then they'll work from there. You know, I know she's really involved in what she wears.
I think Madonna is an interpreter. I don't think Madonna is, I think she can conceptualize and she can interpret. She doesn't go in the studio and play that part on the keyboard.
I mean, all right, well, just look behind me. Modern life is so in your face, so changing all of the time. You don't, you know, you're no longer, I don't think, a fan of one type of music.
The roads are littered with people who used to work with Madonna.
She knew who to use, who to talk to climb up that ladder I talked about before.
All of a sudden, her and Jelly Bean were like this, you know. He was a young Turk, very happening, and all of a sudden he had to produce her records and do the work and whatever, and yes, she moves on. I think she's smart to do that.
I mean, she's kind of known in the industry for never working with the same person twice, you know, and I think it's because of the kind of music that she's making. It's not about helping her bring out her musical skills, or it's about fashion.
Ambition-wise, she wanted to be a star, and she knew she's going to be a star, and she knew who to talk to, who to go to, who to run to.
She can't be pinned down to one type of music. Sure, you could classify it all under the pop umbrella. That wouldn't entirely be accurate because pop has its various subsets, which she has touched upon nearly every single one of them.
Madonna's been very, very clever in terms of producing, being ahead of her time. Ray of Light was way ahead of her time with William Orbit. Then after William Orbit was the French guy, Meroise.
And those who have worked with her say she is always low-key and professional.
Madonna was very professional. Madonna didn't drink, Madonna didn't do drugs. She came to work.
So every day there would be, you know, a fresh batch of like flowers and stuff like that in the room, and candles everywhere, and the assistant engineer had to go around and light all the candles. So when she came in, it was like it was an atmosphere. And Madonna would just like walk home. She would just put on a cap, some sunglasses, and walk down the street. And I can always tell which direction, because I would have to walk home in the same direction. I can always tell which way she went, because people are like, "Is that Madonna? Is that Madonna? Just what? I don't know. No, it couldn't have been her."
As a strong and powerful woman, Madonna has been held up as a feminist icon. For a lot of people, she will always remain the anti-feminist.
It took her a long while to get control of it. You know, in the 80s, she was kind of infuriating to a lot of feminists. You know, people were very, very angry about, and infuriating to a lot of left-leaning people with the song Papa Don't Preach, because at the time it was taken as an anti-abortion song, which it isn't really, but it was sort of seen that way at the time.
I think she's changed popular music culture. Before Madonna, there were very few women who had that much power in the music business. I think that's really important. And I think she has said a lot in her music.
She's a gazillionaire, right? I mean, you don't become that wealthy by being stupid.
She is a powerful woman who's in control of her own destiny. She's, you know, not just a musical celebrity, but she's also a business mogul.
She changed the world with I think giving girls self-esteem and power.
She's somebody who has carved a space for women in music that didn't exist before.
But still is associated with having traded on her sexual image to amass that, her sort of artistic catalog, her money, her art collections, everything, I think in most people's minds is boiled back down to her image, her sexual image.
You could almost say that Madonna, if she wasn't the first, she's maybe the most egregious example of women, female celebrities being looked at particularly because of their sexuality and their bodies.
In 1995, after the erotica girly show Sex Book era, Madonna went to work on an altogether softer project. The result was the R&B sounding album Bedtime Stories. Michael Fossenkemper was her engineer come mediator, as Madonna and the producer Dave Hall were not speaking at the time.
The day that I got to the studio, I got a call from, I was the only one there, and I got a call from Madonna and she wanted to talk to me. Dave and Madonna had some kind of a falling out over some reason or another, and she asked if I would still engineer even if Dave wasn't around. Basically, they were pretty much never there at the same time, Dave and Madonna. So they were, I guess they had their people letting each other know when the other one was there. So I was kind of like the mediator between the two of them.
There were always fallings out.
Now her manager, after my album, Freddie DeMann, who was manager of Michael Jackson, left Michael to become Madonna's manager. Up until they did Maverick Records. And then they had a falling out at Maverick after Alanis Morissette sold 25 million records. They bought Freddie DeMann out. But I think Madonna, very, very smart, very intelligent. She knows how to work the media.
And Madonna was always calling the shots.
I didn't see a lot of people, you know, around telling her yes, no. She was there, you know, which was nice, you know. She didn't show up with a huge entourage of people. It's usually her and the assistant, you know, to help, you know, take care of phone calls or whatever. I mean, there are people coming in and out of the sessions constantly, but they're just, you know, friends or whatever, you know. People in the next studio, just every day it was someone else, you know. Oh, look at Rosie O'Donnell, you know. Oh, look, there's Dennis Rodman.
Even from the very beginning, Madonna was in total control, as Bob Blank remembers from the early days.
It's the first time that I saw that how much power she could have. As an artist working on their first record, you know, everybody patronizes them and tells them, oh yeah, sure, yeah, we'll do that. And then they go in and bring in the heavy hitters. And one of the reasons they were in our studio was they felt they could keep an eye on her and that she'd be surrounded by talent. But she really changed the whole situation around.
In 1985, when Madonna married Sean Penn, their wedding day was famously overrun by the press and paparazzi. In a case of once bitten, twice shy, Madonna has been meticulously in control of her dealings with the media ever since.
Did a long interview with her around the time when Ray of Light was nominated for all the Grammys. We did a big piece about that because it was kind of the new respectable Madonna. And we did a long interview with her around the time when she was pushing the movie with Rupert Everett. Guarded, you know, she's not the easiest interview in the world, even when she's comfortable. She's careful about what she says. She's fairly well-spoken, but not the most effusive person in the world.
I think that she's always been very good at courting the media, but also playing a little bit hard to get with it. I mean, that's always been part of her whole persona, the sort of tease and the flirt and whatever.
I think that what she reveals in her guardedness is her control. You know, she is a controlling person, as one needs to if you're going to try to put an image out there to the world when you've got 9 million filters to go through in the media and all kinds of gatekeepers at radio, and then 8 million different opinions that are going to come at you from all the people who hear it or see it. You have to be pretty sure of yourself.
And she's done that with the media, I think, more successfully than almost any other celebrity.
again, going on with all of the images and all the different ways that she's looked and embodied, you know, herself across the years, they are vivid and they stick out in people's minds. And when they go to see her live, they want to see that. You know, it's almost not even so much about her music as it is about seeing her dressed up as whoever she may be for that particular song or moment.
It is rare to remember the theme of an artist's tour. But with a Madonna tour, the images are so vivid that they're hard to forget.
You know, people expect Madonna to come to her live shows as all the Madonnas that she ever was, you know, and that's going to require like 25 costume changes. Madonna has always been an artist who's done really extravagant videos, and people expect to go to the shows and see the videos kind of recreated. They want to see her in the dress from Material Girl, and they want to see her doing, you know, the dance routine from Like a Prayer, or see, you know, that kind of largesse, I guess, you know, recreated in live form.
The first time she went on the road was with the Virgin Tour in 1984.
You're rehearsing for the Virgin Tour, is that right?
Yeah, we're rehearsing, and we have one more week left of rehearsals before we go on tour.
You know, there are a few people. Madonna wants to know how many people are going to see the Virgin Tour.
I think the big change with her was the Blind Ambition tour in 1991. And that's where she finally had gotten complete control of her sexuality and of her persona, and it was really focused in a more defiant way than it had been in the 80s. It also was the best staged concert. It was the most, you know, had the best sets, had the most creative choreography, the most exciting material. I mean, I think as a live show, the Blind Ambition tour was the peak of her career.
Well, my favorite performance is the Express Yourself. Because there's some really serious choreography in that. It's not only visual, but it's amazing choreography. In fact, that whole concert, the Blonde Ambition concert, probably everyone's favorite.
The really show was just a few years after. Actually, I saw that open in London, actually. It started there. Yeah, that was a bit darker and hardier and drearier. I don't think that tour worked quite as well.
The last concert, the Drowned World concert, was good. It was artistically very different, which really needed, but at the same time, I think people were disappointed because there wasn't a lot of choreography, which is what they're used to seeing from her.
And running parallel with a plethora of images is a plethora of musical styles.
And you see over the course of her albums, as much as her image has changed, her musical styles has also changed.
But the early singles were great. You know, I mean, Burnin' Up was a great little kind of rock song. Holiday and Lucky Star were really, really bright, effervescent pop singles.
And she's experimented a lot with everything from, you know, from rock to more R&B-based music to dance to techno, and it's all just kind of been her doing her own thing.
So many good things on the second record, you know, on Dress You Up, which is a very, very catchy pop song. Erotica was an original record in its time. No one had really made a mainstream trance record like that before and had a big hit with it. She was innovative in the kind of trip-hop sound and bringing that to the fore.
No, there's no favorite album because what you like about one isn't present in the other. If you like the R&B sound of Secret, it'll be difficult to find that again. You won't find that on any of her more recent work.
I just think Madonna, she's kind of her own musical category. She's an artist sort of onto herself, and I don't know, like there should be a section in the music store that's just like Madonna.
You have all the tracks that are sort of New York-like, like Bedtime Story or Ray of Light. But then if you compare that to her early stuff, it sounds like two completely different artists, so you shouldn't ask me to pick one single favorite from two different artists.
She kind of warmed up a lot, both her music and her look, with Ray of Light and music, and became a lot more accessible again. I mean, that's definitely the most fun pop music she did since the 80s.
Perhaps only one of Madonna's records has been regarded as seminal. In 1998, after a few years away, she came back with the William Orbit-produced Ray of Light. In 1999, it won her 4 Grammy Awards.
I've been in the music business 16 years. This is my first Grammy, and well, actually, I've won 4 tonight, but you know, it's worth the wait and all that.
Madonna's marriage to Sean Penn lasted just over a year. Other men came and went, like the late John Kennedy Jr., Dennis Rodman and Warren Beatty. There would be no significant men in her life until fitness instructor Carlos Leon. Whilst filming for Evita in 1995, Madonna became pregnant with their child. Lourdes Maria Ciccone Leon, known as Lola, was born in April 1996.
Well, the role she's playing now makes sense for her age. Not only she is literally a mother of 2 children, and she's married for still fairly recently, you know, just for a few years now. She's 45 years old now, so I think she has to change.
Her newest identity as a mother might have made her appeal to even more people.
There are hardcore Madonna fans who have been following her from the beginning, which probably, those are the people who will show up, those are the people who will buy the children's book, you know, and will go see the movies.
And she already had the acceptance of the young generation. So it seems like she's collecting other age groups as she gets older, which is making her even more popular and more respectable.
She has a much broader fan base, which is now a couple generations of people who have grown up with her and who maybe only have one Madonna album, maybe have the greatest hits or whatever, but still think well of her.
This question, though, of how earnest it is and how much it is an act is actually also something that sort of works for her, because people are intrigued. It's something that people argue over, and it's hard to completely be sure. You know, I'm sure in part of everything she does, I think she is still the little girl who wants attention. It's always been a love-hate relationship with her. It goes up and down, you know. She's always provoked incredibly strong reactions in people, positive or negative.
She can portray herself any way she wants. She can portray herself as a mother, you know, and then, all right, how many 45-year-old mothers are there? There's a billion of them. She can sing lullabies, you know, and pull it off. So she can do whatever she wants and mold herself into anything. So there's no reason why she can't be 70 years old making records.
Certainly, this is not my favorite Madonna period. You know, the floral print dresses and the children's book period. No. I prefer the brazen Amazon, sex goddess, throwing sexuality in your face phase of Madonna.
I think what I really like about her is she just has been able to do whatever she wants. You know, she just, and I think that's admirable, and without really turning into a very weird person.
It would be several more years till Madonna found the relationship to sustain her. She married the British Guy Ritchie in 2000 after the birth of their son, Rocco John Ritchie.
Right now, I feel that she's in a slightly odd phase because people are a bit unused to or suspicious of the new children's book author. People don't know what to make of that yet. It's just kind of dabbling in another field. There's some resentment of someone just kind of coming in and deciding because they're famous that they can write a children's book. Again, in terms of her uncanny knack for collaborators, she hired great illustrators. The books are really beautiful to look at, both of them that have come out so far.
Perhaps for the first time, audiences are finding it harder to reconcile the different Madonnas. Or perhaps this is because she is still pushing boundaries. This time it is as a 40-something mother come button-pushing sex symbol.
And the more human she sort of becomes, you know, now she's a mother and she's married and she's writing children's books and all of these things, you know, the sort of more down-to-earth she is, the more extraordinary she becomes. So it's like the idea of seeing her grocery shopping or the idea of seeing her pushing her child down the street is almost more fascinating than seeing her on a video.
I like about living in England? Well, him for one.
Now living in London, Madonna released the irreverent Music in 2000 and the political American Life in 2002.
I think that British people have an exceptionally sophisticated sense of humour, and I appreciate that.
Relatively speaking, her latest album has not fared so well. While some believe she is struggling for an identity at the moment, most agree that her iconic status is permanent.
She's definitely one of the top entertainers of her generation, you know, of the last several decades. There's just no question about it.
Out of maybe everyone besides Michael Jackson, she's kind of the ideal pop icon. She's what made pop what it is. And in some ways, she defined pop more than pop defined her.
And at the level of superstardom, she's an exceptional case. There aren't many people like her. First of all, the fact that she's managed to sustain a career for 20 years now.
I'd say that certainly most of the time that I've been writing, she's been about, you know, the most important sort of influential figure, certainly of the video age.
And she's made it fun to watch too. I mean, she is, I think, even more than a musician or a dancer or whatever. She's an entertainer first and foremost.
I mean, you can't even really talk about pop without talking about Madonna, because they're kind of synonymous.
She has created the finest collection of videos of any pop star since MTV started.
You know, there's no danger of her disappearing.
And she's an icon to other icons.
Because she is looked up to by celebrities themselves. You know, she's somebody who celebrities aspire to be, because she's had this incredible amount of control over her own career, her own music, and her own image.
She's not just like an example of our modern obsession with celebrities, but she was one of the people who kind of founded the modern idea of the celebrity.
And she's been able to recreate herself over and over and over again, and never really fall because of it. And that is, you know, what I think all celebrities aspire to do.